Greetings everybody and welcome to Daddy DeGrand. The Granddaddy builds a tier list for Curse of the Dead Gods. Shout out to my man Lau, he gave me this link for this nice tier list generator for all of the weapons that Curse of the Dead Gods has to offer. And you know, I haven't played the game in a while, but I kind of like the idea of just seeing how I would personally rank all of the weapons myself, and of course seeing how you guys who have watched me play or play the game a lot yourselves would see yourself put some of those weapons. So I'm probably gonna put the link for this tier list generator into the comments down below, but for now let's actually just start building. You can see it, but on the sidebar I actually have the wiki open, the wiki page open, because I actually do not remember all items just by their icons. Like for example the bows, some of them look very similar to one another, so here and there I have to refresh my memory. Now, I don't need to remember myself which one this is, for example. Like, this is actually one of my favorite weapons in the game. This is the Cursed Sword of Negation, which makes your attacks interrupt an enemy. That by itself is pretty neat, but the weapon itself is very weak. I still rate it very highly because it is a great weapon to utilize your elemental synergies. Like, if you have a fire shield or an electric shield or something like that, using this Cursed Sword over here is an easy way to get off some combos to just overall increase your damage output by a lot. Now over here we got the Keen Bow. The Keen Bow is a meme weapon in my book. In some situations you can make a lot of damage happen with that, but that's all it is, a meme. And I think that pretty much fits the criteria for being an overrated weapon, right? Now, next we have actually one of everyone's favorites, Ancient Buckler. Ancient Buckler is god tier because this shield single-handedly makes almost every man-hand weapon good. All by itself. And it's a shield. All shields are good by default, right? It's just that simple in my book. And if you see it, doesn't even matter what rank it has. Doesn't even matter what rank it has. There's a good chance that it will increase the overall quality of your run just by picking it up. Now, this one, I believe this is the Claw of Evisceration. Used to be a lot stronger than it is right now. Increases your damage by giving you critical strikes on targets of less than 30% HP. It's not that good. It is not that good. Used to be a lot better when it was 50%, but even then, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and it is not only not that good, but there's also just a lot of other better claws than that. Now, the Cursed Bow over here. I have very fond memories of this bow and Annihilation. I had so many good and fun runs of it, and it's basically a decent standalone weapon. If you get good affixes on it, it will be able to carry your run to some extent, of course. That is a huge if. If you don't have those good affixes, you won't, which is not why I'm going to put in very good, but good instead. Now, this spear. I forgot the name, but I'm very sure this is the spear that gives you weakening on a target if you hit it 3 times. That is very slow and not that good, and the base damage it has is also not that good, so that's a bad spear right then and there. Now we got the Barbed Shield. There was a meme with this shield for a little while, where I was like, why would you actively go and purchase this shield when the Lightning Shield exists and does everything the Barbed Shield does, but better? It is still a shield, and that by default makes it a decent weapon at the very least, but it's still a sad carbon copy of another weapon that could be so much better than it. Now, the Fire Sword. Fire Sword is just decent. It's a sword, basic, easy weapon to use, fire attacks, easy to build around. It is a sword, and to my personal taste, swords can be so-so, depending on the lineup, but I feel like this is probably one of the most balanced weapons in the game. You can never have a bad run with it, but in most cases you'll wish you still had a better weapon than it. Like the Fire Shield, for example. Fire Shield is one of my personal favorite weapons in the game, and has carried some of my most impressive runs in the game by far. I would go as far and say that this is one of the, or has been one of the best weapons in the game, until it has been replaced by another one, which we'll cover later. But Fire Shield, easily one of the weapons that kept me in the game for a very long time. Now, the next weapon up in the list is a Cursed Spear, and I'm very certain it is the spear that gives you counterattacks. I forgot the name, let me look it up. It is... Actually, no, it's Bloodstake, the Hunter's Torment. That is the spear that you get from the first boss, and that is actually a very, very good spear. Again, under the pretext that you have to hope that your cursed weapon actually gives you good affixes, but if it does, this game can carry a run. This weapon used to be actually one of the prime choices for speedruns, and it didn't lose that much of its luster. It's still very, very good. Now, what isn't very, very good is this one, the paddle over here. To my knowledge, it is one of the most popular weapons in the game. It's the two-handed curse weapon which gives you free heals. It's trash. It is hot garbage, doo-doo butter. It's slow. Being a curse weapon, it's very, very likely to have very, very bad affixes, and even if it does have good affixes, you have to build around it for it to be bearable. And that is a lot of ifs you have to check out to get an okay run with it. It's not good. But this one over here, the ceremonial dagger, I think we can all agree that this weapon all by itself can carry a run. Easily so, especially if you get the crit affix. This weapon just brutalizes enemies with relative ease. And it's just fun to play around, right? It just forces you to go hard on the perception. Perception itself being a very, very satisfying and fun stat to have. And being rewarded for stacking that stat is very, very good. This is easily one of my favorite weapons in the game right now. And it actively made me like daggers more, so there is also that. Crippling Bow. Crippling Bow is... I'm actually not sure. Not sure between God tier and very, very good. I would like to put it in between, but for the moment I would rather put it into the very, very good tier. It is a great weapon. Ranged weapon, easily very, very strong. One of the few weapons that actually applies weakening, which in itself is just nice as well. And it can easily carry around. This is one of those one single weapons you can pick up, power up all over and over again. It will give you a good run. Synergizes with crit items, synergizes with weakening items. Easy to build around. It's just mwah, chef kiss. Now, you all know how much I hate maces, and I have not too particularly fond feelings for cursed weapons in general. Yeah, this one is... It can be okay in the right circumstances, but I think it is still overrated. It can give you ridiculously high damage numbers, especially if you play around with the highest curse. But for that you need to have a very skill level, and if you have that skill level, you could probably make all weapons everywhere work out. This is something for people who want to do something fancy. But if that is not you, stay away from it, trust me. Trust me on that front, you will not regret it. Now, the Duelist Shiv. This is a very, very weird designed weapon in itself. It has pretty decent base damage, and that is its big plus overall in my book. The effect allows you to be very, very liberate with your stamina by recharging if you get a offhand combo dodge. But here lies the problem. Daggers are already a very, very stamina efficient weapon, so that passive more often than not is gonna be kinda wasted, which makes this a very, very awkward weapon. It's still okay. It is better than most weapons I will put into the bad tier, but it is by far not more than just okay. Now, we have this spear over here. I forgot the name, but this is the spear that makes you... What does it do exactly? Let me think. It makes your charge attacks better. I remember that one. Hang on a second. I need to check the wiki on that one really quick. That is the spear that makes each kill restore 1 stamina. I remember now. It's bad. It is very, very bad. Has okay base damage, but also not that good base damage for a spear. It is not that outstanding. The effect, it can be nice for room clear, especially on lower difficulties, but the higher you go, it will not do you much good. Now this one over here. The Forge Hammer. This one will probably make a lot of people very, very angry. I say it's bad. It is... Oh, in the true sense of the word, it is overrated. You go build together something like the Fire Shield, or go for the specific traits to make this weapon good. And yes, in those situations it can be good. But in every other situations, this weapon is gonna be hot garbage. A lot of people like it, and a lot of people get easy victories with it if they get it early on from a shrine with good affixes, and I can see that. But those are exceptions, not the rule. Forge Hammer is not as good as its reputation. Now, we got the Cursed Shield. I'm gonna put this one in decent as well. Again, a shield weapon, it's never bad. The passive effect, deflecting projectiles back at enemies, very cute actually. You just have to be careful about the affixes on this shield. If you get some good ones on it, it can be a run actually. You can build a run around it, it can deal some very high damage, and you can just punish some bosses somewhat fiercely with it. If you don't, you can still slap it on your offhand, focus on the mana for damage, and still benefit from the offhand combo counters, and have a good time with it. It's very satisfying if you can make it work, and again, incentivizes learning the parry mechanic, which is never a bad thing in this game, because God knows, you will need those parries in your life. Now, the Cursed Claw. Doesn't even matter which one it is, immediate god tier. You already heard me talk about why I consider this Cursed Sword here to be good. It is a great and easy way to trigger combos with status effects on enemies, like from the Fire Shield. This Claw does the same, but much better, just by virtue of the fact that it's faster and easier to combo in and out of. This one over here, if you can unlock it, you will never regret it. In most situations you will never build it as your main damage weapon. You can, but in most cases you don't want to. You want to have this and focus on your offhand weapon that is elemental, and that will carry you through almost every run. And you will have a great time doing so. Fire Claw, very good weapon all by itself, and kind of on the opposite camp of the Cursed Claw in here. If you have a cursed offhand weapon that is very good, you can grab this Fire Claw over here and give yourself a semi-permanent weakening effect on an enemy for huge damage. This one is just a great all-around weapon that you can almost never go wrong with. Now, the Cursed Dagger. Gets stronger the more enemies you kill, but this weapon is just hot trash. Trash is what it is. The damage starts off very low, having one of the lowest base damages for a dagger. And because of how the damage formula works in this game, the extra damage you get for killing enemies doesn't actually do that much for you in the great scheme of things. On top of that, cursed weapons, so highly fluctuation with the passive affixes itself, it is too much of a heavy risk, and the price, in most cases, ain't worth it. It just ain't worth it. Now, the Jaguar Bow, Firebow attacks. Easily one of the best weapons in the game, in my opinion. Very strong, very safe, gives you a decent mix of strong offense, but also a decent defense. And has a lot of building potential. You can slap fire attacks on it, you can slap crits on it. And if you have some nice offhand cursed weapons in there, you can also slap some occasional weakenings on the enemies. This is just one of the easily best weapons in the game, by far. And I found myself surprised so very often just by how good this weapon is, without being too overt about it. It carries you through a run very smoothly without ever giving you the feeling of, oh my god, this weapon is so OP. At some point you just notice that it has carried you very far. Jaguar Hammer is decent. Decently strong, decently safe, a bit defensive by just providing you with that fire that can increase your defenses. It's decent. It's decent. Used to be a speedrunning weapon. I'm personally not a big fan of heavy weapons, which is kind of what makes me want to put it into this tier in here. Actually, I'm gonna put it in there. A lot of people swear by it. I'm not one of them. But it's probably one of the better two-handed weapons, so for that I pay it respect. Now, over here, the Jewel Hammer. I give credit where credit is due again. The Jewel Hammer is one of the best weapons you can give a man who just starts to play this game. Good base damage. It is a mace, which is not a good weapon type, but a very easy to understand weapon type. And permanent illumination, which means that you always will have a little bit higher defense, which means you will be harder to kill. As you go deep into the game, you will start having to rely on these things a lot less. Which is why I want to put it into the okay or overrated tier. I kind of want to put it in its own tier that is like great starter weapon, but we don't have that in the list and don't want to create it. Now, the Machete. Easily god tier weapon, right? No, sadly not quite. It is just the basic sword, no affixes. You can do better by picking up almost any other weapon. Easily so, and you should. You should in almost every case. Now, this dagger over here deals critical damage against weakened enemies, very low base damage. That's trash. Don't unlock this dagger if the game gives you the option. I think it does. Don't ever unlock this one. Now, this is the cursed sword that you get from the second Jaguar boss. Gives you the charge attack that makes you dash forward. Here's the thing. It is a cursed sword, and that, by default, puts it into a similar league like the Abnegation sword. But the Abnegation sword simply has the better base ability. Being able to interrupt abilities on the mud is much better than the dash ability. And both don't deal that high damage, so good tier it is. For the same reason as this one, but just for being less good at it. Now, the next weapon is a pistol. I believe this is the starter pistol, and of course that one goes straight into the garbage bin. And this is the Primal Hammer. The Primal Hammer makes your charge attacks weaken enemies. I don't like it. I think it's bad. I think it's bad. I know Barely Kuda's probably gonna lynch me for this one, but I think it's bad. I tried so hard to make this weapon work also very often. It's bad. It is very, very bad, and in almost every case where you can make it work, there's a good chance you can make another weapon work out better. Sac-Mac, the Sacrificial Makana, gives you critical damage when only one enemy is remaining. In my book, that is pretty bad. It has the same base damage as almost all swords, so there's really nothing outstanding about it. You already get critical strikes on every finishing strike for every sword. And the regular attacks don't even hit that hard. You get maybe some critical charge attacks, but that's where Warmac comes in. Warmac, a little bit less base damage, but you get crits on all of your charge attacks. Very good sword indeed. If you ever wonder if you should play Sac-Mac, bring Warmac in stack. Always and evermore. Now, the Poison Spear. The Poison Spear is a very good weapon, again, just by virtue of the fact that it's easy and simple to use, but also very simple to build around. Poison weapon, crit weapon, that says it all. It's gonna be very easy to find the relics to make it work, and that all by itself will help you immensely making it through the run. Now, next up. Oh, good old Seeker's Mace. Seeker's Mace I used to consider to be one of the very worst weapons in the entire game. They had to buff this weapon tremendously to make it actually worth considering, and they gave it a lot of active and passive buffs. They buffed the passive affix of it by a bunch, and actually also added some mechanics that also make it a bit better. I would say at this point it is a decent weapon. A decent weapon indeed. It can deal good damage, especially if you are doing a diligent job at upgrading your relics over and over again. It will never give you crits. It has no special effects attached to it, so it's actually kind of hard to build around it. But because it gives you so much damage just for having good relics, you can kind of circumvent that fact. And that makes it a somewhat safe and decent choice to have. Poison Dagger. I would say that is a very good dagger to have. I actually personally want to put it in very good. It is easy god tier if you have the crit affix on it, but you can't always guarantee that. But even without that, it's a decent weapon. Good damage, it's a dagger, so that all by itself will make it very safe and conservative to use. And, you know, having poison at it allows it to do some fancy synergies here and there. It's just a great all-around weapon to have. Now, this one is called the Sidewinder Sword. Finishing attacks no longer cost stamina. It's decent. It is really decent, like, kind of similar to the Fire Sword. You pick it up, it will always feel good, but you will never feel like this is the weapon where you want to end a run around. You will always want to upgrade this to something else. But even if you don't, you will still have a decent time with it. Now, the Slaver's Mace. It's bad. It's bad. It's just a mace that wishes it would be a sword. The crits you can get on the finishing strike with it, they are decent. They hit for a decently high damage, but it doesn't bring enough to the table in my book. Now, the next weapon over here, the steel-tipped talons. They're actually surprisingly decent, and I always find myself surprised over how decent they are. You get a dodge, you get free crits. You dodge a lot in this game, and you like free crits, you know? It's extra damage, it's potential healing if you have some crit healing relics in there. And just by virtue of them being claws, they're very easy to play around with. It's a stable weapon, easily a good one. This one is the hammer that makes shockwaves pop out of your charge deck. That's trash. I want to like this weapon so much, and every now and then I used to try it out, but it's just sadly, very sadly, not that impressive. Now we got a bow coming at next, and I'm pretty sure that is the Swift Bow, increasing your movement speed. I know there are some people who really like Swift Bow because that movement speed is actually kind of fun to play around. Swift Bow has, I think, the highest base damage among bows, aside from the regular bow that has no affixes. I want to put it in okay, because I don't think it is bad. Just by virtue of the fact that it is a bow, that immediately makes it not bad. But it is probably one of the worst bows in the game, so... okay. Okay is what it is. Titan Slayer, again another controversial one. I know Titan Slayer has helped a lot of beginning players make it through some of their hurdles that were stopping them for quite a little while. But especially as you go through the higher ranks, that is only gonna get you so far. Titan Slayer is a bad weapon and I don't even feel sorry for it. If you disagree with that one, let me know in the comments below. I'm always happy to see people actually succeed in this game, and I don't care what meta or what method they use to succeed. As long as it works for you, that is great, but Titan Slayer stopped working for me a very long time ago. Vengeance. Vengeance is a very peculiar spear. This is probably one of those weapons that just scales with your skill level incredibly high. If you are the greatest when it comes to parrying this game, this weapon will probably make you the greatest in general. I know my man Barracuda is very good at parrying, and he loves this spear to death for obvious reasons. If you're gonna get some good passives with that and are good at parrying, this one could easily end up being a god tier weapon. For most people, that is not the case, and you will not always have those good, great affixes, so I think decent is probably the highest I can personally give it. Now, Poison Claws. Easily a very good weapon. Same situations as with the Fire Claws. Not as good, but still by far easily good enough to make them count. Now, the Whisper in Aegis. Whisper in Aegis is a weird run. It's a very weird one. A lot of people used to dislike it because it could make you end up parrying in a situation where you don't actually want to parry, and that could lead to you getting hit. Personally, I didn't see those situations happen all that often. I want to put it into the okay tier. I want to put it in the okay tier because I personally had a lot more good situations with it as bad ones. I feel like this is another... I feel like this weapon is the antithesis of the Titan Slayer. This is a weapon that you will outgrow at some point, right? As long as you are not that savvy with the parry mechanic, having a 25% chance to just automatically parry will feel like a saving grace. It is a weapon that makes you want to engage with parry mechanic more, and learn to appreciate what a shield can give you. But at some point, a couple dozen hours into the game, you will outgrow this. But until then, it makes you feel safe. Wind Fury weapon. It used to be one of the worst weapons in the game, and then it got buffed. And I think it was okay at that point, and others said it was OP. And because we can't have nice things, it was nerfed again, and in my book that makes it a bad weapon. Others say it's still okay, it is a bad weapon in my book. Torch! Torch. I mean, you will always have Torch, but you never want to attack with Torch, right? I'm still gonna put it in God tier because the ability to have on-demand illumination just by putting that button to good use, it's still kinda nice. Alchemic Fire Stick, decent. Incredible fun weapon to make use of if you can make use out of it. But it is highly situational. But if that situation comes to pass, not even then, just if you find it can make some use of it just by getting the occasional kill strike, it is going to make you very rich. It's what I wanted to say. But then I remembered that they actually nerfed greed combos, which also was a heavy nerf to the Alchemic Fire Stick. It is still decent in most situations, but right now I would say it is slightly overrated. And this hurts my heart, hurts my soul, but it is my reality of things. Now, this is a whip. I'm actually not sure which one it is. It is, I think it is Flagellation, the Mistress of Agony. That is the cursed whip, which just gives you extra damage in the dark. It is a pretty decent whip. I would even say it is a very good whip. Good damage, whips being one of the best weapon kinds in the entire game. And this one just slaps pretty hard, has good synergies with the poison weapons over here, with the Fire Claw, which I already mentioned before. It's just a good weapon that you will almost always will be able to build a run around, if you really want to. Basic Claws, trash. Now, which whip is this one? I think this is the Bone Shard Whip. That is trash. The Bone Shard Whip gives you extra crit damage after getting a kill. The thing is that you already get crits with the Bone Shard on the finishing strike. The regular attack isn't that strong, and well, the offhand attack is pretty good. It is not good enough to make that affix seem that impressive. There are simply so many better whips than this one, that also have more base damage than this one too, that you never ever want to settle for this one. Now, this one is the Desperation Flail. Desperation Flail, I think, is actually being slept upon. It is definitely a decent weapon. Probably not as high tier as some other weapons we will talk about, but it is very decent. Getting 15% extra damage for every point of stamina missing can go very far. The charge attack you can use with the whip actually stuns enemies, so you can just chain it over and over again, so that you can actually drain your stamina for that huge 75% damage boost on the final swing. And that one will destroy enemies somewhat fiercely. If you're proficient with playing around with your stamina, so you can stay around on low levels somewhat comfortably, this one will give you great results. Now, that two-handed sword over here, I think that is the weapon that we got for the Dead Cells team up. Yeah. I think it is a better Titan Slayer. Right, Titan Slayer used to be the man, and I think this one just does Titan Slayer's job a little bit better. It has the highest base damage of any weapon in the entire game, and gets 2 easy crits that are decently unconditional. And I think the hit chain was actually surprisingly fast as well for a two-handed weapon. Definitely pretty okay. Not a weapon I personally like all that much, just because it is a two-handed weapon, but it is okay for a two-handed weapon. So, this one is the Broken Longsword, just a two-handed weapon without any extra effect. That is not gonna cut it. Literally so. Cataclysm. Oh, Cataclysm. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and then you have Cataclysm. Such a high damage weapon, a high risk weapon, a very fun weapon that is highly prone to killing in the process. There's a lot of hidden mechanics to this whip, and I think that if you understand them fully, you will have a good time with it. This is definitely a weapon for cultured people. I'm gonna put it into the decent tier. If you feel frisky and or just like you can do everything, go for Cataclysm. This weapon will either give you the best experience of your lifetime, or it will humble you. One way or another, it's gonna be great. Now, I think that is a dagger. That is the chip dagger, the basic dagger with no extra effects. I mean, it's still a dagger, so just for that, I kind of don't want to put it in the trash, but if you talk about a weapon without any extra effects, why even bother? Now, chromatic dagger. Oh no, the chromatic throwing knives. I think they are bad. You look at them, you think, oh my god, fire, poison, and lightning, the best of all 3 worlds? It's not. It is the worst of all 3 worlds, kinda, and it's incredibly weird to build around it. There's some fun things that you can do here and there, like you can try and go for a cursed offhand and just cycle through all of the extra effects, but you kinda don't want to subjugate yourself to RNG in that regard. It is not that impressive. Now, we actually talk about a bomb in here. I didn't play around with bombs as much because I stopped playing the game shortly after, but I do remember that this bomb over here was actually one of the pretty okay ones. This bomb over here makes the projectile deal damage as it flies, which is incredible because it actually helps you get the damage off without getting hurt in the process. I would say this was definitely one of the more decent options you had. Now, the Sword of Vindictus. I feel like this is actually a very noteworthy weapon because it was the weapon I used on the last run that I played. Not Vindictus, my god, let me read that up. Conjunctivius. What a name, that's a mouthful. I would say that this weapon is decent for the same reason that the Vengeance Spear over here is decent. If you are good at the game, if you are proficient at the game, and know what you're doing to a T, this weapon will give you great results. It is dealing 3 times the damage as a normal sword, and that is huge. It will carry you through the early game in a breeze. It will allow you to build big greed combos, get rich, without having to die in the process. And that can easily carry you through a game. You just have to be mindful to never get hit. You just have to play every run flawless. If that is a skill level you're talking about, this weapon will make you better at doing exactly that. If it doesn't, it is still doing a good job at teaching you to become a better player and get less hit. So, win-win. Win-win indeed. Now, I am actually not sure if this is the Desperation Flail or the Bone Shot Whip or the Braided Whip, because it is very, very hard to see. I think this is the Braided Whip, the baseline whip, so we're gonna put this one into the trash tier as well, because it has no extras to talk about. And the Void Bomb. I actually really like the Void Bomb. I think it was also one of the more decent bombs to use, because it is, first of all, decently easy to use, and being able to actually just suck enemies together before they're getting hit by that big explosion. It is incredibly satisfying to do. It is a two-handed weapon, so you can't easily get a lot of offhand combos or elemental combos off of it, but if you can here or there pull it off, you'll have a good time with it. And now, speaking of elemental offhand combos, we already have one of the cursed claws in here, and this one over here is just another one. So immediately to the god tier with you. Don't even need to look twice for that one. That is a very easy decision for me to make. I have had so many great runs being carried by these cursed claws in combination with a good elemental offhand weapon. They are just simply amazing. Simply amazing in so many ways. Now, this pistol over here, I think this is the Dragon Sleeve gun, if I'm saying that correctly. The poison pistol. Personally, I really, really like it. I really, really do, and I think it belongs in the same tier as the poison dagger. It's gonna be a bit slower, but it's gonna be a lot safer. And again, combos well with a lot of other elemental weapons or cursed weapons in general. I think that weapon can give you a great time. Effulgence. Effulgence has been the topic of a lot of discussion on the Discord. I remember that. Everybody was like, it's OP, it's OP! And I was like, come on guys, it's a good weapon in the game that is difficult and punching and you need to unlock it. Just let people have this one. And we were not allowed to have this one. It got nerfed. It is still a very, very good weapon. It is a bow, and it is a lightning weapon. Those two by itself make it incredible. And the extra effect, it's still strong, it's still decent, you can still make a lot of work happen with that one. It's a very good weapon. I'm not even going to say it's a god tier weapon. God tier weapon. There it is. Now, this is the throwing knives that gives you charge attacks that allow you to dodge. It's bad. I tried a couple of times to make this one work, and to be fair, it can make some very fun runs. But those fun runs aren't good by default. Now, the explosive crossbow. I didn't play around with this one as much as I wanted to. And when I did, I found that it's actually a little bit difficult to get used to it because of how slow it is. But it makes up for that slowness by packing an incredible punch. I'm gonna put this one into decent tier. Once you get used to it, it's great. And as a bonus, it can crank open up walls for you that would usually need to have a heavy two-handed weapon. It's a decent weapon, it packs the necessary bit of an utility, and if you get some good affixes on it, you'll feel good about it too. Now, another whip. It's kind of hard to tell on this background, but I believe this is either Flagellation or the Poison Whip. Because we already talked about Flagellation before, I will pretend that this is the Poison Whip and put it straight into the very good tier. Safe weapon, strong weapon, a lot of synergy, very easy to build. There's nothing much left to say. It is a great weapon. If you get the crit affix on it, that's a run right there. Poison bombs, pretty bad. Bombs are already pretty hard to use, and the two bombs that are decently easy to use, we already put into the decent tier. Poison bombs are easily one of the weakest bombs there are, and again, hard to use. Sadly, bad tier is the best I can give them. Now, the Warglaive, that is another bad sword. It actually has a very nice looking and impressive seemly effect, but it doesn't do that much. Sadly, I want to like this weapon so much, and I'm always like, I want to get a good run with this sword, but I always feel underwhelmed every time I see it. It is just one of those weapons for me. Heartseeker. Heartseeker, before they reworked cursed weapons, easily would have been a god tier weapon for me. I enjoyed playing this weapon so very much. But the damage nerfs were pretty harsh to it, and now you need to have a very conditional run for it to shine bright like a diamond. I would say it is okay. Okay at best, maybe a bit overrated. I don't know what the common consensus on this one, but I miss what Heartseekers used to be to me. Now, the throwing axes, extra damage against weakened enemies, they're okay. If you're good at parrying, those will give you some great damage. If you use them together with another weapon that just allows you to weaken enemies on demand, they are okay. They will never be truly great, strong, outstanding, but they are okay. Fire bombs. I feel a little bit better about fire bombs than about poison bombs, just because fire is better than poison on almost every day. A little bit better damage, a bit safer to use, but again, not the creme de la creme, but much better to work with than the poison ones. Cat Yum Yum. Cat Yum Yum is probably one of those weapons that gets everyone excited every time you see it. I'd say it's overrated. It's still a two-handed weapon, very slow by default, but it is a very exciting weapon to use. And if you can get a good one with good FXs, it can foderize some situations while making others just very hard. But no matter the situations, you will have a good time with it. That is just the best thing we can say about it, right? You will have a great time. Now this one, the Lamont Grape Shot Revolver, is hot garbage. This one makes it that your perfect shots deal damage to all targets in a cone behind the impact. No. It sounds decent at best, and it isn't even that. Sadly. I want pistols to be good. I'm one of the few people who actually thinks that pistols are, in general, in a decent spot. And even I say that Lamont pistol is not one of them. Now there's a that's not the chip dagger, that is the Obsidian Stiletto. The dagger that increases your damage for each element that is on the enemy target. That is trash. It is, I believe, one of the worst daggers in terms of base damage, having only 20 compared to other weapons' 30. So if you have one extra element on the enemy, that just puts it on par with other weapons. But then you remember that base damage is better than extra scaling, so will fall behind very fast. And that is ignoring how hard it is to actually get 2 or more elements on one single enemy. Obsidian Stiletto is a trap. It sounds much better than it actually is. Don't bother with it unless you're trying to troll. Now, Pirate Bombs. I believe I actually never used Pirate Bombs a single time. This is the baseline bomb without any special effects, and there's no redeeming quality to it. Then we got the spear. I think that's the base spear. Put this one into the trash tier as well. And we got more pistols. Which one is that? Hang on a second. That is the... Is that the Rainmaker? I think it could be the Rainmaker Colt. This weapon is such a meme. So, there is a timer to your perfect shots, and this one removes that window. Once your perfect shot window is reached, you can just keep the button held down until you're willing to fire. That is so bad, because it is just what all bows already give you. It is a cheap knockoff of a bow that gives you nothing even remotely useful in return. It is just sad, and bad, and sad, and it makes me feel bad. And I don't want this pistol to make you feel bad, so never build it. The same goes for this one, Reaper. If there would be a tier beyond trash, Reaper would go there. Reaper would go there immediately. That is a cursed weapon. It has low base damage for a pistol. And if you get a perfect shot, sure, you can get that double damage out of it. Maybe it's going to hit decently hard too. But you lose out your regular shots. And that is such a great deal, because there are so many situations with a pistol where you just want to give enemies a quick tap with a regular shot to keep a creep combo going. The Reaper takes that away from you, on top of having bad affixes just by virtue of the fact that it's a cursed weapon. Reaper is the worst weapon in the game. The very, very worst, and deserves a tier on its own. I want to put every other weapon I have in this tier up one tier, just so Reaper can stick alone in the trash tier and feel bad about it. That is how bad Reaper is in my book. Oh, it is so bad it makes me laugh, actually. But that is not true for the Serpent Bow. We have already talked about the Fire Bow earlier, and Serpent Bow is the same, but with poison. It's a bit weaker, it's not as safe, but it's still very safe, very strong, very easy to build around, and it's going to surprise you. Like, if you like the Poison Spear, this one is just almost everything that Poison Spear is, but easier and better. Silver Stars. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, I love my Silver Stars. Silver Stars are one of the funniest weapons to build a runabout. It makes dodging good, which is something that almost nothing in this game does. Almost everything in this game discourages you from dodging and wants you to parry instead. And Silver Stars is the one Silver Star at the sky that makes you dodge more actively, rewards you for it, and makes you feel excited every time you do. Seeing those damage numbers coming from Silver Stars every time you get that perfect dodge is so fun, so exciting. Trying to actively dodge into abilities just to squeeze that out the extra bit of damage, it is just so good, so fun. It is not enough to make me want to put it into the good or very good tier, but it's decent, and it's easily an S tier weapon when it comes to overall enjoyment. The Lightning Hammer. I feel like the Lightning Hammer is a carbon copy of the Fire Hammer, but not as good, which is surprising because it's a lightning weapon. I'm gonna put this one in the bad tier, because in order for this one to truly shine bright like a diamond, you want to see them finishes, because that is a big charm of lightning weapons, and because of how slow it is, you will hardly ever get there. And if you do, chances are targets are already dead. And if you are ever at that point, you may as well just go for the Fire Hammer and have a better time. It's pretty bad. I would probably put it in a tier between, because it's not that bad, but it is pretty bad in my book. Now, the Fire Pistol. The Fire Pistol, easily another very good weapon for me. I had so many good and satisfying runs with the Fire Pistol. It is like the Poison Pistol, but better, stronger, safer, and just overall very satisfying to play. Don't sleep on using just the charge attacks with this one either. They can end up hurting an awful lot. In fact, I had one run, I don't know if I put it on YouTube actually, but I had one run where I tried to just focus on that charge attack, and I was able to get some ridiculously high crits with it. It's never going to be, as a range weapon, as strong as the Fire Bow, but because it also has the great offhand attack for interrupts and good damage, that still makes it a very nice and safe weapon to have. Thor's Hammer over here, the Spark Hammer. It's okay. It's okay. I would go as far and say that's probably the best mace in the game. Which doesn't say a lot, because it's still a mace, but it's pretty okay for a mace. Dynamite. I think Dynamite is actually another one of the decent bombs, and I think this one is heavily slept upon. If you get a kill with it, you make a shockwave that damages other enemies and weakens them. And that is incredible, because that can actually create a chain reaction of very fast kills here and there, which is very satisfying to see. It's gonna fall off against bosses, but just because of how much fun it is to use in regular rooms, it is at least decent. Now, this is the regular bow. Same reasoning as with the Swift Bow. It is both decent damage, and that by itself makes it never trash tier. So I'm gonna put this one into the bad tier. You still want to see basically anything else aside from it, but if you're stuck with this one, you will still do at least somewhat fine. Now, turns out I was a goof, because this is actually the Poison Whip. So I'm gonna put this one in here, which means that this one is probably Desperation. Which means that I'm gonna put you in here, which probably means that you are the Stamina Whip, which means that I'm gonna put you... I think you were still good. Yeah. I was actually just looking at the color schemes in here. This one is green, this is a Poison Whip. Easy to build around, safe, good, great weapon. One of my favorites, easy, whips in general, being one of the strongest weapon kinds in the game. You will never go bad with that one. Basic mace, nothing to say about. Bad, 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 bad. But now we have one of the easily god tier weapons again. The Thunder Whip. Probably the best lightning weapon in the game, and I say that knowing that effulgence exists. Thunder Whip is so easy to use, so safe to use, probably one of the safest weapons in the game that is not a shield, and combos so well with all of the cursed maintenance weapons in the game. Also with some of the poison maintenance weapons, so keep your minds out on that one. Spark Whip has carried so many runs with me, and if you see one that gives you crit offhand attacks, that is a 1-1 right there. Easily so. Lightning Shield. Same reason a top tier weapon as the Fire Shield is, but your parries are just stronger by also dealing damage. It is... I said it before, Fire Shield was probably one of the strongest weapons in the game at some point, and Lightning Shield is everything the Fire Shield is, but stronger. You're gonna go grab yourself a cursed weapon on top of it. You're gonna go grab 3 lightning strikes every day and you get 3 weakenings on top of that too. And then you make this shield slap hard. You get a crit fix on this thing too, and you will easily see high triple digit to maybe even 4 digit crit damage numbers. It is that impressive. It is just so satisfying to use. The Lightning Spear. It is an okay weapon. I would say a bit overrated. It doesn't have that much base damage, but because of the charge attack covering so much room, you can actually make some very satisfying lightning damage plays happening here and there. It's okay. Far away from being as good as most of the other weapons up in here, but it is pretty okay. The Cursed Fist Shield. I want to put it in trash just for how infuriating the dead zone on the combo attack is. But it is still a shield, and it can still deal some pretty high damage, and it combos well with some of the elemental maintenance weapons in the game. You need to be mindful about how to use it, and if you are, it can be good. If they fix that stupid dead zone bug where you just don't hit the target, it would easily go into the decent to good tier. But without that, bad is as high as it can get. And it hurts my heart, hurts my soul to put a shield into this tier. Easily so. Now, only 5 weapons remaining, and we're looking at throwing knives in here. These are just the regular throwing knives, so these go into the trash tier. Warmonger Claws, they're decent. Get extra damage for having endurance, which you will usually just pick up naturally over the course of the run. You become more survivable and deal more damage for survivable. I like that mentality, so it's pretty okay. Pretty hard to deal around aside from that, but you almost never go bad with that choice just because of how basic and safe it is. Rated Blades, probably the best throwing knife in the game, just for how decent it is. 50% extra damage if you are standing decently far away from enemies. Scales well with the Ancient Buckler over here. Yeah, it's easily the best throwing knife in the game. I think almost everyone can agree with that. It is not good enough to put it into a tier to get all these god tier weapons over here. But I would still say it's very good and feels satisfying to build a run around as well. Baseline shield, again it's a shield, so that all in itself makes me not want to put it in trash. But you want to replace this ASAP. And lightning bombs. Kind of similar to poison bombs. Weak base damage, you actually need to finish off the combo to get the big benefit out of it, and even then, it is mildly impressive as is. So guys, there you have it. Let me shrink this down a little bit so we can see the entire list in total. That is my tier list, my Curse of the Dead Gods weapon tier list. There's, of course, going to be things that you may disagree with, and I'm very curious about those. There's maybe something where you feel like, I don't know, I think you should definitely put this weapon a huge, huge tier higher. Let me know about all of those, because I'm actually kind of interested. And who knows, maybe if you make some compelling arguments, you make me play this game again. Or not. Or yes. Or not. I don't know. Whatever the case, guys, if you stuck around with me until the very end, I love you. This was probably a pretty long list, so I appreciate that you stuck around for this long. And what else can I say except thanks for watching, have the greatest of days, and please do stay as awesome as you are.